those are things you can look at, and all kinds of projects people have done that are, do something that's useful for you. If your superintendent is asking you to consider, and one of yours is considering, he's moving a space, changing space usage, if that's something that you can look at doing, fine, but don't take a project on that is going to require you days to do it. I don't have that intent. I don't want you spending that amount of time to do it. And you're going to do a little research on the internet. You can interview, Alex is going to interview an architect or a construction firm and basically say, here's some thought process on going. Questions on your project?
Yeah, that's basically my question, the sources, what we
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, I think I said 3 sources. So that means a person source, a resource, electronic source, and then anything you can get hands on, an actual example of something. And make it worthwhile, something that's useful for you. I'm not asking you to do it just for the sake of giving it to me, because that won't help me as much as I want it to help you. So that pretty much, and then with your exam, you're going to know when the exam comes on. Will be opened up for you, and when it's going to be due back for you, that will come right along. Any other questions on assignments, Wendy?
Yeah, on the email you sent to us, I would like for you to clarify that we only need to respond to 2 of the
Yeah.
discussion chapters.
Okay.
So
Saw
would
that
you
too.
clarify that, please?
Pick 2 chapters besides mine, number 1 and 2. When
Like
I-
Angie's we had recently,
Yeah.
I responded to hers.
Yeah.
Now I'd only need to do 1 more.
Yep. You do more if you see something that's useful that they do, and I'm looking and trying to respond to those and back to you guys, but I say too minimal because I don't want to make a time commitment that you got to do like I'm doing every night.
Right.
I'm going through and seeing if there's anything new. I don't want you to have to do that, so pick a couple chapters you have an interest in out of your book and look and see who did the review, and if that's the chapter that you kind of like, read through that and give some dialogue back. But only 2 of those is enough.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
That is very good. And I have another question. On all of these documents, I see the discussion question, only one needed, and discussion question answer. What exactly are you looking at for that? When I'm writing up my chapter, I guess I don't have a good handle on what is the discussion question. The whole chapter is a discussion question because you're looking at the whole chapter. So you're wanting us to pinpoint a particular question that's out of there and then give them the answer?
I want you to give me a thought process, Laura, that you say yourself. I posed this question of my own you could do 1,000, but what these guys said here, what particular thing was amazing to me? So I write myself a question and say, now I know something that would give you an opportunity to say to these other people, I had this question of my own, and this is the answer I had.
Okay.
And then that way we can kind of share it, and each of you have a different point. Plus, it is good feedback on guest speaker for these guys saying this is something they learned, and this is they responded back to it. That feedback is good for them. But that's always when you are in your doctoral program, which you're through, but the rest of you, the challenge was always, if you were to pinpoint a couple things as a question mark, what were those and what did you gain from those? That's the effort I want you guys to pick up, knowing you can do 1,000, but what would be a higher priority question that you gained from them today, and then an answer? Because I want to be able to see whether or not you got the correct answer. You posed the question, did you answer it correctly or not? If not, I'll have that discussion back with you and say, that really isn't the exact thing, there's this or this involved. That answer that?
That answers that.
Okay, other questions, thoughts on dates, times? All right, I want to pass this around. We're going to talk about design now. In the schools themselves, you're going to find, as you tour through these and do your BCEFs, all kinds of different designs are there. And hopefully now you know a little bit about what an ed spec is, or a program that I passed around to you. And you know that if you were to go out and do a new school, hopefully you'd spend the time, or if you do a new space, you'd find the time. And I told Alex the same thing. I said, if he's creating a new space, he needs to write a program on that. What does it entail in there? A little bit about the parameters. everything from square footage to, and then we go in behind the scenes and they'll do a full ed spec that will list lighting, where do we want lighting controls, how much lighting controls, what's going to be in there technologically, do we put LCDs in, and we'll talk about that when we get next door, but what is further behind the scenes of this? This is our peripheral and then our explanations there. I had a little study done on the programs of high schools, because what I wanted to look at was efficiency. And how do you determine whether a school is efficient or not? Anyone have a handle on that? When I say efficient, meaning that you get the most dollar for your square footage, most bang for your buck. Probably not something you have studied and looked at. Well, I look at this and say, okay, here's the 7 biggest high schools right around this valley. Everything from Caldwell, Valley View. Rocky Mountain is the largest school in the state now. That school has 275,000 square feet, a little bit bigger than what Mountain View used to be, and Rocky passed it a little bit. So what I wanted to know is, as I was getting ready to design our school from the architects, where do you see the usable and the unassignable and the footage that is not in circulation, which is walls, circulation, areas that not usable. So I asked the firm to do a complete analysis for me on those, because what I wanted to do is to get as much square footage in here that our taxpayers could use, rather than a lot of unassignable square footage. And so you'll see that when we go through there. Under our stairwells, we had them box them in and put storage in there. That's not usable square footage, but it is space that we can use. We didn't want a whole bunch of areas that was not usable for either classroom space or wide corridors for circulation. So I did a little study here, had them do a study, and as you program for a school, you have a factor called net to gross factor. And I want you to memorize this. Net to gross factor is something that says it's a fudge factor involved that puts me in everything that isn't usable square footages. An example of that is this particular space we're in. Our net square footage is everything inside these doorways here that is usable. In your classroom, it is your net square footage that is there that the kids can circulate through. If you have counters, that's not net usable. If you have a closet back there, that's not net usable. So I calculate net usable, and that doesn't include my wall thicknesses either. Now, when these guys calculate my cost to buy this thing, they're going to go on the outside of that thing and trace around the outside. That's the gross square footage. You're buying gross square footage. You're using net square footage. So the importance is that I want as much net square footage as I possibly can. No different than your home. You want your home bedroom, for instance, if you want a master bedroom, so large that you can decorate it, change your bed wherever you want. Dressers, this and that. If you have built-ins, then flexibility decreases. So there's another question you ask yourself. In your net square footage, how much built-ins do you want versus adjustables, giving you flexibility? That's a call you're going to make. You're going to find that in our administration area, I put built-ins in there because I want it compliant, I want it compacted, and certain things done a certain way. The counseling side, we left an area where they could put a desk in there. That's the difference. But net square footages, net to gross, is something that you're going to need to determine. And the reason is that when you go and when you ask the question about why are these buildings not big enough? Well, interesting enough, part of that is that those architects have no conception sometimes on how much net square footages we want. If you tell them you want a 900 square foot classroom, an architect will tell you fine. And if you don't bring up the conversation with them, I want 900 net square footage, they'll give you 900 gross. Meaning that all their built-ins within that 900 are things that these guys tell you there's the cost of the room, but 900 net means that you start out with 1,000.